The gunshot echoed across the canyon, sharp and final. She dropped to the dirt, breath torn from her chest, watching the wagon wheel splinter beside her face. Dust burned her eyes. Horses screamed somewhere behind her, then silence too sudden, too wrong. When she looked up, she saw him standing there, rifle shaking in his hands, just as shocked as she was to still be alive. They were strangers, enemies, maybe, but the desert didn't care, and now survival had already chosen for them. The dust took a long time to settle. Mara lay flat against the ground, her heart hammering so hard it hurt. Every breath scraped her lungs. She tasted blood. When she finally dared to move, her fingers came back red, not hers. The bullet had missed her by inches, but fear clung to her like sweat. "Don't move," the man said. His voice was rough, tight with panic he was trying to hide. She rolled her head just enough to see him clearly. He stood a few yards away, rifle lowered but not put down. His hands shook. His eyes were locked on the ridge above them, scanning for movement. "You shoot at me again," she said. "You won't miss twice." He swallowed. "Wasn't aiming at you. That's supposed to help." Elias Cole had learned long ago not to argue when words only made things worse. He glanced at the canyon wall again. No sound, no movement. But silence didn't mean safety, not out here. "They were following you," he said. "I saw the dust. 3 riders, maybe 4. Mara pushed herself up onto her elbows. Pain flared in her ankle. She hissed and grabbed it, fingers pressing into swelling flesh. "Then why didn't you warn me?" she snapped. "Didn't have time." That was a lie. Or close enough to one. The truth was simpler and uglier. He'd hesitated. He always did. She tried to stand and nearly fell. Elias stepped forward on instinct, catching her arm before she hit the ground. The contact startled them both. She pulled away, eyes sharp, mistrust blazing. "Don't touch me. Your ankle's bad," he said. "You won't make it far like that." "I don't remember asking for help." He nodded once and stepped back. He knew that tone. Pride layered over fear. He'd worn it himself for years. A distant shout drifted across the canyon, followed by laughter. Mara froze. Elias felt his stomach drop. "They're close," she whispered. "Closer than I like," he said. She looked past him at the empty stretch of land ahead. No cover, no wagon, no horse, just sun and stone and death waiting patiently. "If they find me," she said, "they won't stop. They won't stop for me either." Their eyes met. For the first time, she saw something in him that mirrored her own fear, not weakness, but knowledge. He'd been hunted before. The shouts came again, louder. Elias lifted his rifle. "We can argue," he said quietly, "or we can move together." Mara hesitated, jaw tight, torn between instinct and need. The desert wind howled around them, carrying the sound of approaching riders. She had seconds to decide. Mara clenched her teeth and nodded once. It wasn't trust. It was math. Alone, she'd be caught. Together, maybe not. Elias moved fast, leading her away from the open ground toward a narrow cut between 2 slabs of rock. He kept one hand on the rifle, the other hovering near her elbow without touching. She limped, each step sending pain up her leg, but she refused to slow. "They after you?" she asked through strained breaths. "Yes." "For what?" "Surviving." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "Figures." The passage narrowed, forcing them single file. The rock walls closed in, blocking the sun and swallowing sound. Elias counted steps in his head, measuring distance like he always did. 30 yards in, the path dipped sharply. "Down," he whispered. Mara slid first, landing hard but silent. Elias followed, turning just in time to see shadows pass above the cut. Boots scraped stone. A voice cursed. "They went this way," someone said. Elias held his breath. His past pressed in on him like the rock walls. If they saw his face, if they recognized him, it wouldn't end here. It never did. Mara's hand found his sleeve. Her grip was tight, steady, not begging. The riders moved on, their voices fading. Minutes passed. Neither of them spoke. When it was safe, Mara finally exhaled. Her shoulders sagged. "You knew where to go," she said quietly. "I've run through worse. That's supposed to comfort me." "No." They climbed out of the cut on the far side, emerging into a stretch of dry brush and scattered boulders. Elias scanned the horizon, empty for now. Mara tried to put weight on her ankle again and failed. This time, she didn't hide the pain. Elias knelt despite himself. "Let me see it." She hesitated, then sat. Her boot was already swelling against the leather. He loosened it carefully, fingers gentle despite the urgency in his chest. "Broken?" she asked. "Not sure." "Sprained bad?" "Maybe worse." Her jaw tightened. "I can still walk." "For how long?" She didn't answer. Elias tore a strip from his sleeve and wrapped her ankle tight, anchoring it as best he could. The act felt dangerous in its own way. Helping meant staying. Staying meant consequences. Why help me? She asked suddenly. He paused. The real answer sat heavy on his tongue. I owe to many dead men already. Instead, he said, because they'll kill you if they catch you. And if they catch you. He stood, eyes dark. Then I don't plan on being caught. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land. Night would bring cold and cover but also new dangers. Mara looked out at the endless desert. I was headed west, she said. There's a town 2 days out. If I make it. Elias followed her gaze. 2 days was generous. 3, maybe 4, with her injury. And that was if the riders didn't circle back. I know another way, he said slowly. Longer. Safer. She studied him, weighing risk against hope. And if you're lying, then we both pay for it. The desert fell quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was waiting. Somewhere out there, men were still looking for them. And Mara realized something that made her chest tighten. She might need this stranger more than she was ready to admit. They moved at night. The moon was thin, barely enough to light the ground. But Elias preferred it that way. Darkness hid them. Darkness forgave mistakes. During the day, they rested under rock and brush, breathing shallow, listening for sounds that didn't belong. Mara's limp slowed them more than Elias liked, but he didn't say it. Instead, he matched her pace, watching her jaw tighten every time pain shot through her leg. You don't have to hover, she said after a while. I'm not. She stopped walking. The sudden halt nearly sent her falling. Elias caught her again, this time not pulling away. You keep looking back like you expect someone to rise from the ground, she said. I expect worse than that. Her eyes searched his face. You always talk like a man who knows what's coming. Elias released her arm and turned away. Keep moving. They crested a low ridge just before dawn. Below them stretched a dry basin marked with tracks, fresh ones. Horses. Several. Mara saw them too. They're ahead of us. And behind, Elias said, pointing to a second set cutting across the basin's edge. Her breath hitched. They're circling. Yes. For the first time since they met, real panic slipped into her voice. Then your safer route didn't work. No, he said calmly. It delayed them. Gunfire cracked in the distance. Not close but close enough. They dropped into the basin and hurried toward a cluster of rocks. Mara stumbled, her ankle giving out. She went down hard, biting back a cry. Elias was beside her instantly. He dragged her behind cover as another shot echoed. Closer now. You said they wouldn't catch us, she hissed. I said I'd try. That's not good enough. He met her gaze, anger flaring. Then what do you want? The truth? Yes. His words caught in his throat. He thought of the men he'd left behind, of the blood that never quite washed off his hands. I used to ride with them, he said. Not these men, but ones like them. Her face went still. I know how they think, how they hunt. That's the only reason we're still alive. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind and the distant sound of riders closing in. You were an outlaw, she said flatly. I was worse, Elias replied. A bullet struck stone inches from his head. Rock exploded into shards. Decision time, he said, grabbing his rifle. You trust me now or you don't. But if you don't, this ends here? Mara's eyes flicked to the basin, to the riders moving like shadows at the edge of sight. She nodded, fear and resolve colliding in her expression. Tell me what to do. Elias exhaled slowly. When I say run, don't look back. The first rider crested the ridge just as Elias fired. The shot dropped the man clean from the saddle. The horse bolted, screaming into the dark. Shouts erupted from the basin, sharp and angry. Run, Elias said. Mara didn't hesitate. She pushed through the pain, lungs burning, the ground uneven beneath her feet. Elias fired again, not to kill this time, but to scatter, to buy seconds. Seconds were everything. They reached a narrow ravine carved deep into the earth, barely visible until you were on top of it. Elias slid down first, turning to catch Mara as she fell. She cried out despite herself, pain ripping through her ankle. I'm sorry, he muttered, hauling her into the shadows. The riders thundered past above them, hooves pounding like war drums. One dismounted. Boots crunched close. Too close. Elias held his breath, hand clamped over Mara's mouth. Her eyes were wide, wet with pain and terror. She nodded once to show she understood. The man above them spat into the dirt. They're close, he called. Wounded, maybe? Another voice answered. Good. Makes it easier. Elias's jaw tightened. He eased the knife from his belt, weighing a choice he'd sworn never to make again. The boot steps came nearer. Elias moved. He surged from the ravine, silent and fast, driving the knife up under the man's ribs. The body sagged without a sound. Elias dragged it back into the ravine, blood soaking into the dust. Mara stared at him, horror and understanding mixing in her eyes. You didn't hesitate, she whispered. I did, he said quietly. Years ago? They waited until the riders moved on, the search widening instead of tightening. When the sounds faded, Elias slumped against the ravine wall, breathing hard. I'm not proud of that, he said, but I won't let them take you. Mara studied the blood on his hands. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt something else: relief. You saved me, she said. He shook his head. I endangered you the moment I stayed. Night deepened. Cold crept in fast. Elias tore more cloth from his coat and bound Mara's ankle again. Tighter this time. You can't run anymore, he said. Not like this. What are you saying? There's an old mining shack north of here, he said. Abandoned. We can hide there till morning. And if they find it, then we fight, or we don't make it. Mara leaned back against the dirt wall, exhaustion dragging her down. You're risking everything for someone you met yesterday. Elias looked away. I lost someone once. I ran instead of standing my ground. She caught the weight in his voice. And you won't do that again. No. They reached the shack. Just before dawn, a half-collapsed structure clinging to the rock face. Elias barricaded the door as best he could. As the sun rose, Mara finally slept. Elias stayed awake, rifle across his knees, listening. Because he knew something Mara didn't yet. The men hunting them weren't just passing through. They were looking for him. Morning light crept through the broken boards of the shack, thin and unforgiving. Elias hadn't slept. His eyes burned, fixed on the door. Every sound outside sharpening his nerves. Wine rattled loose tin. Somewhere far off, a bird cried, then went quiet. Mara stirred. The pain hit her before memory did. She sucked in a breath and sat up slowly. They find us, she whispered. Not yet. She studied his face. The tension there told her more than his words. But they will. Yes. Silence filled the space between them. The shack smelled of dust and old rot. It felt temporary. Like everything else. You said they were looking for you, Mara said finally. Not might be. Elias didn't answer. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the fire in her ankle. You don't get to decide what I face without telling me why. He stood abruptly, pacing the narrow space. If you know, you'll leave. Or I'll choose, she snapped. Which you keep taking from me. He stopped. The truth pressed in, heavy and unavoidable. My name used to carry weight, he said. Men followed me. Men died because of me. Mara's chest tightened. You led them. Yes. And now they want revenge. They want justice, Elias said bitterly. Or what passes for it. Outside, a distant shout drifted toward them. Closer than before. Mara reached for his arm. Then running won't end this. He met her gaze, eyes dark with resolve. No, it won't. A shadow crossed the broken window. Elias froze, lifting the rifle. Hoofbeats approached, slow and deliberate. They know, Mara whispered. Elias scanned the shack. One door, one narrow back opening, no real cover. A trap. I can draw them away, he said. Give you time? Her hand tightened on his sleeve. No. It's the only way. You said you wouldn't run, she said fiercely. This is just another kind. The door creaked under a testing push. A voice called out, calm and confident. Elias Cole. You're surrounded. Elias closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, something had shifted. He pressed the rifle into Mara's hands. If they come through that door, don't hesitate. Her breath caught. You're asking me to live, he said. No matter what. The door shuddered again. Would splintered. Mara looked at the rifle, then at him, fear wired with something stronger resolve. What if I won't leave? She asked. Elias's jaw tightened. Then we both change today. The door cracked open. Sunlight flooding the shack as Boots stepped inside. The door burst inward with a violent crack. Elias fired first. The blast filled the shack with smoke and splinters. One man went down hard, screaming. Another stumbled back, shouting orders. Gunfire answered immediately. Bullets ripping through wood, tearing holes in walls that had stood for decades but were never meant for this. Stay down, Elias shouted. Mara hit the floor, rifle clutched to her chest, heart slamming against her ribs. Fear surged, but so did clarity. This was real. There would be no rescue. No second chance. A bullet tore through Elias's shoulder. He grunted, staggered, but stayed on his feet. No, Mara breathed. He ignored the pain, firing again, forcing the men back from the doorway. Dust and smoke choked the air. The shack groaned under the assault. They won't stop, Mara said, crawling toward him. There's too many. Elias pressed a hand to his bleeding shoulder, jaw clenched. Then we don't give them time. He glanced toward the back opening, a narrow drop. Into rocks below. Dangerous. Final. You can't jump, she said. My ankle. I'll carry you. Her eyes locked on his. You'll die. Maybe, he said. But not like this. A voice rang out from outside. Closer now. Last chance, Cole. Walk out. And she walks free. Mara froze. They'll let me go. Elias shook his head. They'll use you to break me. The shack shuddered as someone rammed the door again. Wood cracked wide open. Mara made her choice. She raised the rifle and fired through the doorway. The man outside screamed and fell back. Silence followed, shocked, sudden. Elias stared at her. You said you couldn't. I said I was afraid, she replied, voice shaking but firm, not weak. There was no time left. Elias scooped her up as the door gave way completely. Bullets flew as he ran, leaping through the back opening just as the shack erupted in gunfire. They hit the rocks hard. Pain exploded through Elias's shoulder and Mara's ankle. The world spun, but they were alive. They rolled into a narrow crevice, hidden, breathless. The riders shouted above, confused, scrambling. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, the sounds faded. Not gone, but moving on. Elias slumped against the stone, blood soaking his shirt. His face had gone pale. Mara grabbed him, panic flooding her voice. Hey, stay with me. You don't get to disappear now. He managed a weak smile. Looks like I stayed. She pressed her forehead to his. You did. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert. They were battered, changed. The hunt wasn't over. It might never be. But they were no longer alone. And for the first time, neither of them wished they were.